The info space is entering a brand new era, and I'm sorry to break it to you, but you've been misled.
Coaches and course creators will add $100K per month to your offer in the next 90 days using YouTube ads, guaranteed.
Because right now, the traditional way of scaling an info or coaching business is dying. The market is literally splitting into two parts, and depending on what side you're on, it's going to have a drastic impact on how you'll be able to scale your business in the next year and beyond. Now, the good news for you is that there is still a fundamentally good way to win in today's market using an approach that was technically unconventional for a long time. In the past 4 months, I've not only launched my own Done With You offer, I've scaled it to $147.2 thousand with a 70% close rate, all while having less than 3,000 followers. And while doing this, I've seen 3 gigantic shifts in the info space that for some reason most info operators and businesses don't seem to really pick up or notice, that bring a massive opportunity for you and I, and that's also what I've used to scale my clients to multiple 5 figures. For example, like Caroline, who went from 10 to 30K a month in 90 days, Nicole, who went from 0 to 20K a month in 120 days, Charlie, who literally went from 0 to $20,000 a month with a jazz piano offer in 105 days, and so many other operators like Matthias and Eddie, who scored multiple 5-figure contracts while just working with me for less than 3 weeks. While doing all of this, I've used all of these strategies to scale my own business to 40K a month, retaining a very high close rate of 70% like I mentioned earlier. You get the point. So that's why in this video I'm going over the 3 biggest shifts that are happening in the info space right now that are causing this gigantic shift and polarization of the market, and what you can do so you don't end up falling into the commodity trap, followed by my own detailed roadmap so you can actually succeed in the next half year and beyond as a coach, creator, or agency, and can set yourself up to hit 20K per month consistently without all the bullshit that the typical bro skillers are trying to feed you in this market. Shift number 1 is what I like to call the Trust Recession, otherwise known as the death of bullshit. Because you see, social media and the online space are entering an era that I find very fascinating called the Trust Recession. And look, this isn't some buzzword that I came up to just to market it in this video. The majority of big creators and entrepreneurs in the space are talking about it, like Alex Hormozi, Ravi Abufala, Gary Vee, but for some reason no one seems to take it more serious than it is. Because the Trust Recession quite literally indicates that the majority of online service providers, coaches, agencies, creators, course creators, every kind of business that you're thinking of right now is becoming scrutinized and seen as fake, untrustworthy, and bullshitty. In short, everyone's becoming skeptical, and rightfully so, because for as long as I can remember, every single time I would look online, the only thing I could see are people trying to sell me something with all these ludicrous loud claims, all the bullshit numbers, I promise you this in a short period of time, and it's becoming really tiring. Because for as long as I can remember, it just feels like everything has been so fabricated to sell you a fake lie and simply to feed the pockets of whoever is behind the screen. And this is incredibly fundamental to understand if you're operating within the info space, because there's literally 2 very polarizing opposite sides, and depending on what side you're on, it's going to mean either you'll have a very successful career track or you're going to be competing with everyone else and basically becoming irrelevant. So let me run you through the 2 real quick. On the one hand, we have your traditional funnel-based business, the ones you see everyone running, the ones reliant on complex funnels and high ad spend, high-pressure sales calls, and a gigantic calendar with no breathing room, crazy money-back guarantees with unbelievable promises, fabricated and questionable cases, and lastly, very low profit margins. These are not fun businesses. And then on the other hand, we seem to have a rise of different types of creator businesses. They seem to be magnetizing money no matter what they do. They have a whole list of clients waiting to work with them. Their results actually speak for themselves, and they don't have to rely on a guarantee or stupid claims to even get clients. They don't seem to be hustling, and they genuinely seem to be enjoying life, having fun while building something amazing. And their profit margins are very, very high. Little spoiler here, but it's the second type of business that's really going to thrive in today's market. But before I break down exactly why these types of businesses are seemingly rising and actually winning in the long term, let me explain how we even got to this point in the first place, because once you understand this, everything will make sense. So let's go back to 2019 and 2020, when COVID first hit the world.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
And if you remember this time, it wasn't particularly fun. We were locked in, we didn't have a lot of breathing room. I was stuck in my 25 square meter room in Amsterdam, wondering what the fuck do I do now? And so we saw everyone going online. Now, don't get me wrong, the online world was already thriving, it was alive, but we saw a gigantic insurgence of people just going online, and guess what? We saw the rise of influencers, people streaming, AI, and a small group of people had the idea of, well, this could be a golden opportunity to acquire people online. Because without the opportunity to scale typically with connecting people in real life, the question easily became, okay, how do I get as many people online to buy my service or product? And so we saw the rise of funnels. Now don't get me wrong, funnels already existed for many years and they've been running for many years. But because of this shift and everyone questioning, okay, how do I even grow my business now? Funnels became more and more and more popular. It kind of spread like the virus itself. At the same time, with the rise of everyone going online, misinformation spread like a wildfire. I'm not talking about propaganda type shit. I'm talking about the fake ads, the crazy claims. The one time I had to tell my mom that the ad she saw on Facebook was illegitimate because if she clicked it, she could potentially get scammed for money, that type of stuff. And unfortunately, many people saw it as an opportunity to abuse the state of the market. And that's where we saw the rise of unethical practices. The service and info space saw a gigantic insurgence of fake reviews, overhyped promises. You get the gist. And let's not get started with the misleading information and outrageous guarantees. The market has become flooded with what I like to call promise inflation. It's like every coach, creator, operator, agency is at this point just trying to out-promise each other. For example, you got people saying scale to 6 figures in 90 days with 0 experience, or I'll get you to 10K a month with 5 new clients every single day, or I'll guarantee you 30 clients within the next 10 days, and if you don't actually sign your clients, I'll pay you $5,000, buy you a luxury trip to Bali, and get you free food on the way there. It's becoming really outrageous. And this all happened because of the wrong question being asked, in my honest opinion. The question being, how do I get as many eyeballs to buy from me as quickly as possible with as low as a cost? Meaning that the room for ethics and really doing things the right way is just completely thrown out of the door. At this point, it just feels like everyone has a podcast, everyone is the most legitimate source of whatever, without any real claims or proof or backing. And to make matters worse, AI entered the scene. Because wow, since ChatGPT and other AI tools have become very common in daily use, we've seen a rise of AI content, AI claims, AI reviews, AI-based programs, and the whole schmuck. Quite literally to the extent that AI-made videos are seemingly becoming so realistic that I can't even sometimes tell the difference, which I can't tell if that's a good or a bad thing. Now leave all the schmuck aside, and with all of this happening, the only real thing that this means for you and I is that there is becoming a gigantic gap between actually trusting someone online and looking at them and going, fuck, this shit's fake as hell, which leads to massive skepticism between your buyers and making it harder for them than ever to actually engage with you. And now luckily, and quite honestly that's how I see it, we're hitting a point where the saturation of the lack of trust is becoming so large that it's backfiring, and thank God it is. Because for all your bro scalers and everyone who's out promising and out guaranteeing each other, it's becoming harder than ever to compete because you're basically become a commodity clown market. Thank you, Trust Recession. And look, yes, it does affect you and I, but actually it presents a very beautiful opportunity. Because while everyone's asking the old question of how do I outbid, outguarantee, outpromise all the other people doing the exact same thing as I because I'm just like everyone else and not really unique, aka bro scalers, there's a question you could be asking yourself that's only going to lead you to winning in the long term, which is how do I genuinely make a connection with my audience in a way that they resonate with my ideas, my philosophies, my theses, making them genuinely believe in what I offer and what I could potentially help them with. Which leads me into the second shift, which is that funnels are dying and ecosystems are actually bringing life back into the market. Just like every other market, the info space kind of swings like a pendulum. What used to be, how do I get as many eyeballs to buy for my services quickly AF, is swinging to the different side now, which is asking, how do I genuinely serve my audience, making a real impression, a real connection, and truly helping them? Because no one trusts anyone online anymore. And this also happened for a reason. You see, traditionally speaking, scaling a info, coaching, agency-based service business is basically the question of, okay, how do I build the right funnel? And if you're unfamiliar with the funnel, a funnel is basically a system by which you get essentially cold eyeballs who have never seen you, heard of you before, to become a little bit warm, to understand that you can potentially offer them something, and to basically just sell to them. It's basically a triangle. You have the top, middle, and bottom of your funnel. Typically speaking, the steps it follows are essentially making your audience who is unaware to becoming aware and generating interest to eventually desiring and buying from you. Now, one of the most common methods of building such an offer, shout out Alex Hormozi in his book 100 Million Offers, is essentially asking yourself, okay, first of all, what is a highly scalable offer that has a crazy, no-brainer money-back guarantee? Now then, how can I get as many eyeballs to see my offer? By running an ad to a landing page where they can opt in for a lead magnet in exchange for their information. And then step 3, which is basically, okay, running an email sequence to nurture this audience or getting them to book a call with me where I'll basically go and close them, and if I don't close them, they're a dead lead. This is the model that everyone wants. But there's also a core and fundamental flaw with this model. Because aside from the fact that this is what has caused the trust recession, seemingly because the only way we get people's attention is by slapping a big fat guarantee in their face, it brings gigantic vulnerabilities to every business running it, because it runs off what I like to call the 15% trap. Do you remember the question that I asked earlier, which is how do I get as many eyeballs to buy from me as quickly and with as low cost as possible? That is the fundamental problem. Because the whole thesis with that question is, okay, fuck everyone else who doesn't want to buy from me yet. Because the whole point of a funnel is to only target people who are problem aware and push them to buy from you. And according to Eugene Schwartz's Breakthrough Advertising, written in 1966, the rule of thumb is that on average 15% of your market's only ever going to be problem aware. But because there are no real other touch points in your customer journey, because basically every client goes through the similar journey where it's like advertisement, click on it to a landing page with a crazy VSL, and from that landing page they either get emails to which they eventually will book a call with you if they're problem aware, and then all your job is to just close them or say fuck off. The point is that the rest of the 85% of your leads are basically just burnt at all times. If they don't convert now, basically, okay, well, fuck them. I know it sounds ridiculous because basically you're paying for every single lead and you're just saying fuck them, which presents a second challenge with these type of traditional businesses, which is what I like to call the CPA skyrocket. Because yeah, sure, although you may get a ton of traffic from an ad coming to your landing page, your cost per acquisition is going to go insanely sky high with all these other people also offering guarantees, basically the same thing that you would offer here. In fact, one of the clients I was consulting previously who was running this previous traditional funnel structure had an average cost per booked appointment between $200 to $500. Now keep in mind this is just an appointment because their actual close rate before we started working together was 25%, which if you think about it, that brings you to a cost per acquisition of $800 to $2,000 per close, and their program was only $4,000. Yeah, that doesn't really sound that sexy now, does it? Because the whole problem with funnels is the sell first thesis, that approach. Funnels are linear and they assume that everyone goes through the exact same customer journey, and if they don't fit it, fuck them. Which, if that's the whole thesis and approach that you're running and everyone else is doing the same, how do you even stand out at this point? Everyone has the same crazy guarantee, everyone has the same offer, so the only natural way you actually sell and scale more is by running more crazy guarantees. And this all happens because it's a result of short-term ooga booga, monkey brain, quick cash grab tactics. There's no long-term play into this. You're never really consistently building a long-term brand, which means, hey, if I turn my ad spend down right now, there is no more business. You're always starting from zero. And I want to really emphasize this, and I'm being a little dramatic here on purpose, because the irony of all of this is that I found that in the past, 15 months, collecting over $750,000 in client combined revenue and my own business, you don't have to milk your clients. And this all starts with acknowledging that your audience might be a little more sophisticated than you give them credit. Because of the trust recession right now, it takes way more time for any audience to convert before they buy from you. Your audience needs time to really explore what you do, build trust in you as a service provider because everyone else is kind of offering the same thing anyways, and genuinely believe that you can offer them help. And to spoil a little bit, growth ecosystems drastically shift this perspective because they not only allow you to sell to the 15% who is problem aware right now, they give you an opportunity to actually connect to the rest of the 85% so that when they're ready to buy from you, trust me, they will. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me break you through one more shift that's super important to understand, which I like to call the hamster wheel of sales. Because let's continue with that little track of running a typical traditional funnel-based business. Leaning off of that model, sales actually becomes a nightmare. Let's assume for just a moment that you do manage to run a reasonably cost-efficient funnel-based model where you're basically targeting those 15% of problem buyers. Just keep in mind, you haven't actually properly nurtured your audience. Your audience still needs time to build trust in you. They still don't know who the fuck you are, and all they come on is the fact that you mentioned some crazy guarantee. And sure, you might get problem-aware leads, that 15% that genuinely needs the help you could offer, but because they don't trust you or anything in this market regardless, the average closing rate of these funnels is abysmal. I'm talking 20 to 25% closing rate. So just let's do some quick maths over here. Assuming you want to scale your offer to $50,000 a month. Your offer is a 5K program, or it's split by $2,000 in 3 months. To hit $50,000, that basically means you need to sign 10 clients every single month at a $5,000 one-time fee, or you need to essentially close 25 people who are doing the split payment option of $2,000. Now assume the close rate here is 20%, right? The only way you're gonna scale this up is by doing fucking more. Going off of the 20% close rate, you're likely going to have to close about 40 calls every single month at 5K ticket rate, or 125 calls of people doing roughly the 2K split. And you need to do this again and again and again and again and again every single month without seeing a single alteration into that actual closing rate. And don't even hit me with the, yeah, but Vincent, what if you hit them with some kind of a post-picking acid? It's not going to change the numbers drastically because this model is been done and the numbers don't change. And presuming the fact that you're still trying to consistently keep up your sales while you still have to deliver a service, how do you even drastically scale this up? Sure, Vince, why not just get a setter and a closer? Okay, go get a setter and a closer. And then if you're going to hire, guess what? Your profit margins are going to go down. And because your profit margins are going to go down and you want to retain that higher profit, that means you need to do more volumes of sales. But to get more volume of sales, you still need to get more people on board on your team, meaning you're going to have a gigantic team of setters, closers, and now you have to fulfill way more clients, meaning you have to get another customer support manager. Do you get the picture? Meaning before you realize it, sure, you might be hitting a 200K a month revenue business, or let's just make it a bit more realistic for the sake of reference here, 100K per month. You're still only going to be running on average, what? Let's say 30% of your profit goes to your sales team, 20% of your profit will go to the rest of your team in service management, and then you're probably still spending, what, 10% on ads? Maybe even more? So before you realize it, you're left with a 30 to 40% profit margin business. And let's say for a fact that you were doing 100K a month, that's only you retaining 30 to 40K in profit a month. Now that's a lot of money, don't get me wrong. Funnels are a hell of a model to scale. They're not very fun. They're incredibly exhausting. At one point, you're just wondering, I wanted to do a coaching business, but now I'm basically just scaling a team and managing people. And hey, sure, look, that's really well deserved if you want to make 40K a month, but you could be running a hell of a business, or you could be running a very lean, high profit margin business that's only doing 50K a month in revenue, but retains 80% of its profit. It serves half or maybe even less of the amount of clients that you're serving with that gigantic hamster wheel, has a lot of leverage, and is still earning more or the same amount of profit than you are with that shithole. Look at those two side to side and ask yourself, hey, which one do you want? I already know my answer. That's why I'm running the second model. So to summarize why this hamster wheel happens, the whole traditional approach paired with the whole trust recession, paired with the fact that funnels are dying, basically lead to a gigantic lack of quality, because almost every single lead that gets into your funnel, the majority of people aren't serious, and thus you need to have a shit ton of calls. Your calendar is basically going to become a prison of calls. And if you're not doing the calls, you're gonna have to hire a shit ton of salespeople to handle that volume, which means, okay, great, but what if next month doesn't perform as well? So you're on high stress, you have to constantly get better ads, you're never building up any leverage, your close rate stays the same. Do you see how that kind of turns into that hamster wheel I'm talking about? And let's not forget, you're playing against the trust recession. AKA, you got no leverage, and good luck, have fun with that business model. Anyways, that was a very clear picture, and I'm not trying to scare you off here. So for the rest of this video, how about we focus on what is a way better way to approach this market, so you don't end up in that little commodity trap like I called it earlier, where you're stuck in a hamster wheel not having fun with your business, and you're able to actually scale a business that's fun, high profit margin, simple, and doesn't involve all that bullshit. Which leaves the question, how do I move from here? Let's establish a quick baseline. 1, there's a gigantic trust recession right now. Your audience is pretty sophisticated, and they don't trust the majority of online service providers anymore. 2, funnels are dying. They're absolutely becoming a commodity, and the only way to win inside of the funnel world is by out-funneling, out-guaranteeing, and out-promising everyone. And 3, if you presume to go into the funnel route, you're basically just getting yourself stuck in a hamster wheel. So welcome to a different era I like to call, on the opposite scale of the trust recession, the authenticity era. I know it's not the sexiest name, but I had to name it something, okay? Because that pendulum that I told you at the start of this video that's swinging, it's swinging into a way better direction. And the game plan is actually quite simple. It's not easy, but it's really simple to win in this big fat hamster wheel fuckery of bullshit in the market right now. And editor drumroll please, the answer is by simply building a growth ecosystem. Let me run you through a quick little analogy. If funnels are kind of like those McDonald's meal that you only eat on a day that you feel really shitty about yourself, sure, they fill your belly and hey, yeah, if it fits your macros, but in reality, you feel like shit after eating them, then ecosystems are like a very healthy, well-balanced meal. You got your steak, you got your nice portion of carbohydrates, you're very well energized, and you're ready to tackle life, excited and with a lot of energy. You get the picture. Ecosystems are a very fresh breath of air inside of the market right now. Look, to be honest, the market isn't actually oversaturated. It's oversaturated with a bunch of clowns and idiots who are just trying to milk the market. There are way too little people who are actually genuinely building awesome businesses. So if you're looking at this going, hey, how do I start? Here's the next steps you can take starting today. And I'm breaking this down into 4 core moves. The first is defining your core audience and creating your core transformation. Now, the whole point of a growth ecosystem is that it really relies on knowing exactly who you're serving and the value you're bringing to them. Again, you're not relying on these crazy guarantees here, and you don't need to. You got to be very specific here. In my case, it's I help coaches, creators, agencies, and info operators add an additional $20,000 monthly recurring revenue to their business without all the bullshit, while maintaining high profit margins without any crazy funnels. Because specificity builds trust. People are looking for a genuine person who can help them achieve their outcome, which means if you don't highlight it, you're never going to attract the right people. What I want you to do here is get very clear on who you're serving. What exactly does their day-to-day look like? What are their core problems? And how does a transformation from point A to point B working with you really look like? And most of all, it's important you speak their language. See, it wouldn't make any sense for me not to make this video breaking down the exact terminology that you all watching this think like and talk like. Because, well, I am both my own consumer as I am the person providing the services. Point is, the better you understand your audience, the easier it is to actually design a business that is scalable. And a little tip here, if you're going, okay, Vincent, but how to decide a niche? I work with this audience and that audience and they're drastically different. Well, the answer is actually still quite simple. The niche isn't the type of person, for example, doctors or healthcare. It's people with a specific problem. The problem is the niche. Keep that in mind. Now, the second step is to design your leveraged offer. What I mean by that is you do not need 17 different products to scale in 2025 anymore. And you also don't need only one offer that you're going to sell to every audience, because the truth is your audience will be at different points in their own customer journey. So what you should do instead is have one clear vehicle that you help your audience solve their problems by. That is your leveraged offer. The whole goal is that that vehicle, that offer, is flexible in delivery while it still brings people to that same goalpost. The way I do it personally is by having 3 main ways of serving my audience. On the one hand, we have the done-for-you offer. This is specifically for the 1% market of people who I can personally get my team involved in. It makes sense to partner up and we scale their business together. This is done for my clients because I know that by working together with them, partnering, and my team taking care of it, we'll make way faster speed, get better results, and it's a win-win on both sides. Now, the second offer is done with you. This is what I would consider consulting, mentorship, or coaching. In my case, it's my offer called The Collective, which is typically a one-on-one offer in which I typically guide my mentees. I have a lot of really cool student results that show up on screen right now, but the whole idea here is that this is for my top 5 to 20% ICAs. And the whole goal is really simple. I cannot help them because their own foundations aren't set in stone for me to operate them, or they don't have the budget or want to necessarily partner with me as an info operator. So instead, I give them access to my resources, my time, my guidance, and every single structure that I've built to help them scale their business to 20K a month. And lastly, there is the DIY, or in this case, do-it-yourself, courses, materials, structures, frameworks that I can offer to the remaining of my audience that still wants to interact with my world, that still wants my help, but doesn't necessarily fit my mentorship or isn't a good fit for my done-for-you service. Because of this, I still am able to serve the majority of my audience that entered my ecosystem, that interacted with me, that understood how I could serve them in ways that's flexible, that serves both me and them. And the whole point to really nail this down is to get very clear on your messaging, to be very clear with exactly what transformation, like I told you in step 1, you can provide, because then your audience can see that. They can interact with your profiles, with your ecosystem, with your content, and when the time's right, they'll be able to get your help. Now, step 3 is really crucial because now you know exactly what transformation you're providing and who you're speaking to. You have a really good vehicle in this case, your hybrid offer stack. All that's left essentially is to build the ecosystem that will attract your audience and essentially do the majority of the nurturing for you. Because let's go back to funnels real quick. Do you remember how I told you that the majority of funnels rely on a selling mechanism? I call this sales-based conversion. The only way you're ever going to sell to someone is by getting them on a call, breaking down every single objection, handling them, making sure you convince them to work with you and making a deposit or paying you in full or whatever structure you use. The really funny thing about this approach that got me thinking the other day is that, well, the whole point is that it relies on the question, how do I handle objections on a call? Well, how about I tell you that the real answer isn't to get the perfect objection handling framework like those sales bro videos you see on Instagram. What if I told you the best way to handle objections is not to get any? Because your ecosystem does all the nurturing and selling for you. And remove the word selling, replace it with serving. The whole point is that you want to build an ecosystem, a place where you can be online, where people can interact with your world, get value from you, understand better how you can help them, understand your method better, understand your cases and your results better, to an extent that they're able to fully understand how you can help them. So that by the time you've even offered them to even potentially help them, or that they're interested in your offer, they're already pre-nurtured and technically pre-sold. Here's how my personal ecosystem looks like. On Instagram, you get the daily touch points, the fun stories, and you get to see the behind the scenes events. And on YouTube, you really get to dive into the value that I bring and really all the things I know and my little world of nerding about the info space. And the important thing to realize is that this ecosystem doesn't work in a straight line. The customer journey isn't just,
I see Vincent's reel, I'm going to click on a post, I'm going to buy and work with him for 7K.
That's not how it works, and that's also not what I'm trying to do here. We're not trying to emulate a funnel. We're doing a complete different approach here. Because instead, by running, for example, an ad to my ecosystem, someone sees my ad, they get interested in what I have to say on it, they check my Instagram, and they might not buy from me today, and that's perfectly fine. I don't need to sell it. In fact, the whole point is I don't need to sell to anyone right now, because I know and I fully understand that by the time they've gone through my ecosystem, they maybe click the link in my bio, they check these YouTube videos or this one that I'm filming right now, it'll shift their beliefs and make them realize that there is actually a way I can serve them. And whether it's tomorrow, 10 weeks from now, or maybe 6 months from now, I know that eventually I'll be able to help them. Because the whole point of this trust-based ecosystem is that you don't focus on selling, you actually focus on serving. And the key here is that you actually make content that is insanely valuable. Stop thinking, okay, no, I need to hide my best information and only give access to the people who work with me and who pay me for it. Give away your best information like I'm doing with this video and save the implementation for the people who actually want to work with you. Let's do a thought experiment for a second, right? Because this has actually been happening all along, except just not on as accessible or small scale as in microbands as it's happening right now. Because people like Alex Hormozi, Gary Vee, Ravi Abufala, William Brown, these people have been running these strategies for, well, if not sometimes even decades. Think about Gary Vee. Because which one of them do you think actually need a guarantee to sell anything? Let's say Alex Hormozi came with the best offer on the planet, typical for Alex Hormozi, and he said he'd offer it to you right now. Would you ask him, oh, do you guarantee it's going to work? Or are you just going to listen to that guy because he is Alex Hormozi? That is my point. They don't force anyone to buy from them. By the time they ever make an offer public to you, you've consumed hours of their content, know exactly what they do, what their unique method is, and how they could offer you help. And by the time you've moved from becoming symptom aware to actually being fully aware of a problem that they could solve for you, well, you know what you're gonna do if you have the budget to work with them. In fact, you're already sold on them before you ever hop on a conversation with them. And before you go, well, Vincent, yeah, of course, because they're big brands. I've been doing this for the past few months. My clients have been doing this. This is how I've been able to scale drastically. In fact, I got my first DM close without ever hopping on a sales call with one of my prospects. I knew he was a good fit to work with me. He's been consuming hours of my content. In fact, he entered my ecosystem 3 months ago. And when I made the offer on my stories, he said, you know what, Vince, I want to work with you. And I said, hey, sure, let's make sure it's qualified. He texted me over his DM information and okay, cool, send a deposit. Which also brings me to the final step, which is curating your buyer's journey. And this is very specific to the offer that you run. And I want you to pay attention when I say curating the journey. Think about it. Funnels are very linear. They basically treat people like walking ATMs. Oh, you see an ad. Oh, you click on this link. Oh, you're going to call me. And oh, we're going to close you on a 25% close rate and force you to buy our services. Please don't do that. Instead, actually respect your audience. Go into their footstep and understand, okay, this is where they're at. This is kind of the steps they take. Here's their pain points, their problems, their symptoms. And based on that journey, create a customer journey. Curate it. So that your audience can naturally move from being symptom aware to problem aware to solution aware to actually working with you. And that means you have to ask a very important question, which is how can I truly serve an audience? And move away from a quick sale approach to actually fundamentally doing the icky thing, which is called thinking long-term, people. And if you're a bro scaler, that's gonna sound very, very foreign to you. I'm sorry to hurt you with this one. And this means intentionally designing how someone interacts with you. In fact, every single video that that I put out, and it might sound a little bit crazy, again, I told you I'm a nerd in this field, is intentionally designed to do one thing, to genuinely just serve as many people as possible. I don't care if you take this information and use it. In fact, I want you to go ahead, take every single thing I told you in this video and use it. And by the time that you're able to implement it, or maybe you haven't found success, well, I know that I'm also here to serve you if you need help. This means you create content that actually is valuable. Yeah, not just the typical how to do shit or 5-minute videos with no real substance. Put in some actual effort into the things you do, because it will land for the right people. It's not just about your videos being entertaining, it's about your audience generally going, hey, wow, this really describes where I'm at and I genuinely connect with you. Because when that happens, all you have to do next is create natural conversion pathways, where someone's actually able to DM you because you've made available and you told them how they can best reach out to you to work with you. Or let's say you use an email marketing system whereby you've had people opt in into your newsletter, and on your newsletter, after providing a lot of value, you're saying, hey, few spots open to work with me. Or maybe use stories. Look, the conversion mechanism doesn't matter, but the fact of the matter is that people are aware that you can truly serve them and they're not feeling forced to buy from you. In my business, I convert mainly through DMs. After watching a video like this or checking out my Instagram, I say, hey, look, if you're trying to get the help with this, you can go over on my Instagram, DM me the keyword grow, and I'll see if it's a good fit and I might be able to help you. And I have a genuine personal conversation with every single person that I speak to, because I'm not gonna go work with you if I don't truly fully believe I can help you and serve you. And that's a really breath of fresh air that I don't see a lot of people do, because how are you just selling to people as if they're brainless monkeys? And that doesn't make sense to me, quite honestly. And that doesn't mean that you can't scale, by the way. Look, the whole point is that you're not forcing a sale, you're not making anyone pushed into a corner, feeling insecure, lowering their frequency, as we like to say it metaphysically, shout out neural knowledge, to buy from you. The point is you're positioning yourself as the right help, the right servant for other people who need your help. Because when the time's ready, trust me, they will go to your calendar and hit you up with a, hey Vince, I genuinely want to know if you're still taking clients, can I work with you? Like happened to me the past few weeks, back to back to back to back. And this is the core of what I call a high trust business, where people genuinely resonate with you, they understand your method, they know you can help them with the outcome, and they genuinely want your help. Now, to give you a bit of a more contextual and in-depth overview of what this looks like, let me run you through how my literal ecosystem works so you get a bit of a better picture. Between March 25 and June 2025, I launched the collective, my Done With You offer. And in these short, 120 days, I've basically closed a total of $147.2 thousand. And I did this with a 70% closing rate. That means that 70% of every single person who came into sales calls with me ended up buying from me. I had no funnels active. The only thing I just focus on is how can I truly serve. I'm active on Instagram and YouTube, like I told you. Instagram, where I run 10% of my profit as ads to get people into my ecosystem, where the rest of every single piece of content is intentionally meant to simply nurture and share more about how I can serve others. I have quite some entry points, like my YouTube long form videos like these, or Instagram organic pieces, ads like I just said, and sometimes also referrals, people seeing me through others' networks. And instead of putting a VSL link in my bio going click this link to work with me, or running direct ads to a VSL, I just simply allow people to enter my world, watch the content, like a video like this, and when the time's ready, decide if they want to actually talk to me and work with me. I call this the trust journey. Someone finds me online, they check out my Instagram, they go through 3 or 4 videos, then they check my link in bio, they go to the YouTube video that I have, which is the video that I'll link down here, they get familiar with my model, they may watch this video, or they binge everything I have available on YouTube, and by the time that they've watched all these videos, because they're all designed to bring as much value as possible, well, the end game is that they're like, okay, crap, this person can actually help me. If it's genuinely the case, they'll go back on Instagram, send me a DM, I quickly have a conversation with them, see if they're actually a good fit. And the fun thing is that by the time we speak, the majority of my audience is actually 80% sold. I tracked every single close that I made with my Done With You offer, and not a single person has not consumed 1 or 2 of my long form videos. And to round it off, this is why it works, because this is the ecosystem thesis. If 15% of your audience, based on Eugene Schwartz's study, is always problem aware, that means that 15% of your market will typically buy now or within the next 3 months. Then, the remaining 25% of your audience is likely to convert 3 to 6 months later inside of your ecosystem. The remaining 30% is likely to convert between 6 and 24 plus months into their own journey after they've entered your ecosystem. And the remaining 30% will never convert. That's the whole thesis. And the biggest mistake that almost everyone makes is that they're just trying to rush sales because ooga booga, small brain, quick sales, because that's the only way we can possibly think about it. But how about you take a moment to just think long term? Because this shift changes everything. You're not forcing sales, you're not making people feel small or weak because you're better than them in order to work with them. No, you're genuinely just providing actual real value like you should as a human being. And so really that's it. If you recognize that you're in this position in between these two words, shifting, where you're either about to step into the funnel journey or you've been on that path for a while now and it's not really going the way you like it to because you're constantly forcing people to work with them, you've got shitty close rates, it's not really fun to run them, this is your wake-up call and time to really shift things. Because you're likely spending an insane amount of ads, doing a shit ton of outreach, or potentially just burning through every single DM conversation, forcing people to buy from you, wondering why is it not happening? Because there's actually a way better way. And the coaches, creators, operators that actually start making a beautiful shift in this market, the people you see who genuinely just are magnetic, they're making the shift already. In fact, they've been making that shifts for the past few months. And I can tell you and I can promise you the results of their efforts will be compounded. And in the next 6 months, it'll drastically shift where they're at if you look at the average market. Because while everyone is fighting with their monkey brain for that 15% of the market that's supposed to convert today, doing crazy guarantees and promises and big old claims, you'll be the one who doesn't only actually appeal to the 15% because you're not an absolute fucking clown. You'll also end up speaking to the 85% who might need your help later. That's all it really takes. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to my channel as I'm pushing out a lot more content going even deeper into topics like these. And I've got some pretty good news because in the next video that I'm creating, I'm gonna go very deep, in fact meticulously detailed into the exact structure and strategy that I use to be able to close $147,200 with a 70% close rate in the past 4 months. So make sure to be on the lookout for that one. Now, if you wanna go through some more cases, some more breakdowns of ecosystems, then go check the playlist in my link in bio because I've got a lot of cool stuff there. Now on that note, if you are looking for more in-depth breakdown structures, ecosystem theses that really dive deeper into how I help my own clients scale to 20K a month or how I scaled my business to a 400K a year hybrid operating business, then I have a few really awesome videos breaking that down that you can check out on my channel. And now if you're a coach, creator, operator, agency owner, and you're currently in the position where you feel in between these worlds, maybe you were heading down that path of that funnel route and now you're going, well, fuck, I have no idea how to actually scale this up, have a simple roadmap so I have a fun, non-complex and high profit margin business, then I've got some good news. Make sure to check me out on Instagram and DM me the keyword grow because every single month I open up a few spots to work with me one-on-one. My clients are doing really well and I'm very proud of the amount of time I'm able to put into serving them. So if I can serve you, I'd be happy to see if it's a good fit and we can take it from there. So that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. A lot of nerding from me on this one and I'm happy to do even more in next video. So make sure to sub and I'll see you then. Cheers.